Let's go ahead and take a look at our last transformation. This time we're going to be talking about reflections. And we have two different types. We can either reflect our graph over the x-axis or we can reflect our graph over the y-axis. So let's go ahead and take a look at a function. We're going to work with the graph of y equals x squared. So we have the parabola graphed in red. And then we want to go ahead and take a look at the graph of y equals negative x squared. You'll notice this time the negative sign is all the way out in front of our function. So we have our parent function here in the form of y equals f of x. And we have a negative sign out in front of our function, or in front of the f of x piece. In this case, that negative sign out in front is going to produce a reflection over the x-axis. And you might see my notation when I'm talking about reflections. Sometimes I write that as a capital R, and then I'll write which axis it's going to be reflecting over. So in this case, if it's reflecting over the x-axis, you'll see me put a little x as a subscript. When we reflect over the x-axis, this is going to impact our y values. And it's going to be the equivalent of taking whatever our y value is and multiplying it by a negative 1. So let's go ahead and work with a point. And let's pick a point on our original graph. So let's go with the point 2, 4. We can go ahead and call this point P. And if we want to perform a reflection over the x-axis, we're going to be taking a look at this y value. We're going to multiply that y value by a negative 1. And that's going to give us the point 2, negative 4. And this should be a point on our new graph. We'll go ahead and call it P prime. So here's our point 2, negative 4. On the graph that was reflected over the x-axis. And now let's go ahead and look at our last reflection. This time we're going to be reflecting over the y-axis, and we'll use the graph of y equals the square root of x. This will be our parent function. Still in the form y equals f of x. And this time we're going to take a look at the graph of y equals the square root of negative x. So you'll notice this time your negative sign is inside with the x. So it's in the form y equals f of negative x. The negative sign there is not out in front like it was in our last example. It's inside with the x. So this is going to produce a reflection over the y-axis. And I'll use the same type of notation. I'll use the capital R with a little subscript of a y to denote that it's being reflected over the y-axis. This time it's going to be impacting our x values. And let's go ahead and take a look at a point. So we'll use the point 4, 2. And we'll go ahead and call this point Q. And when we go ahead and reflect this over the y-axis, right, we're going to be taking our x values and multiplying it by a negative 1. Right, so this time we're looking at the 4, that's our x value. If we multiply it by a negative 1, we're going to get a negative 4. And our y value there is going to stay the same. It's still a 2. So we'll go ahead and call this q prime as our point. And if we plot it, here's our point -4, 2, which is the point on our transformed graph.